After 4 decades of watching fortunes made and lost on Wall Street, after building myself up from nothing to millions and back down again more times than most men care to count, I've come to understand something that will sound almost insultingly simple when I say it out loud. The secret to profitable trading isn't complicated. It never was. The rules are so straightforward that a child could understand them. Buy when the market tells you to buy. Sell when the market tells you to sell. Cut your losses short. Let your profits run. Wait for the right setup. Don't overtrade. That's it. That's the whole game right there. But here's what took me years of pain, bankruptcy, and sleepless nights to truly comprehend. Simple and easy are not the same thing. Not even close. In fact, I'd argue that the simpler something is, the harder it becomes to execute consistently. Because simplicity strips away all the places you can hide from yourself. There are no complex formulas to blame, no elaborate systems to tinker with when things go wrong. Just you, the market, and the raw truth of whether you can follow the rules when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to do the opposite. I've watched men with degrees from the finest universities, men who could calculate compound interest in their heads and recite economic theory like poetry, lose everything because they couldn't master the simplest rule of all. When you're wrong, admit it and get out. I've seen brilliant analysts who could predict market movements with uncanny accuracy still end up broke because they couldn't sit still when the market was telling them to wait. Intelligence, education, knowledge. None of it matters if you can't control the person staring back at you in the mirror. The market doesn't care about your hopes. It doesn't care about your needs. It doesn't care that you need this trade to work out because you've already lost on the last 3. It doesn't care that you bought at the top and you're absolutely certain that it will come back if you just hold on a little longer. The market is indifferent to your existence, and that indifference is precisely what makes it so difficult to trade profitably. We spend our lives in a world where effort is rewarded, where persistence pays off, where if you just try hard enough you can make things work out. The market obliterates that worldview. In the market, trying harder often means losing faster. I want you to think about something for a moment. When you're in a losing position, what does your mind do? It starts building stories, doesn't it? It tells you why this time is different. It reminds you of that one time when you held on and the market came roaring back. It whispers that you're smarter than the crowd, that you see something they don't. It does everything in its power to protect your ego from the simple, brutal truth. You were wrong. And every moment you stay in that position, you're compounding the error. This is why I say trading is simple but never easy. The difficulty isn't intellectual, it's emotional. It's psychological. It's spiritual. Even. Trading forces you to confront every weakness in your character. Are you greedy? The market will punish you for it. Are you fearful? The market will exploit that too. Are you stubborn? Are you impulsive? Do you need to be right more than you need to make money? Every single one of these traits, these very human traits that might serve you well in other areas of life, become liabilities in the market. Before we go further, I need to tell you about something I've put together, decades of hard-won wisdom distilled into a guide I wish I'd had when I was starting out. It's called Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk. You'll find the link in the description below. I encourage you to check it out, because what I'm sharing with you today is just the surface of a much deeper philosophy, one that took me a lifetime to develop, and one that can save you years of painful lessons. Now, let's talk about why most traders fail, even when they know the rules. I've seen it happen thousands of times. A man learns about cutting losses. He understands it. He nods his head. He agrees completely. Then he puts on a trade, watches it go against him, and suddenly all that understanding evaporates like morning mist. Why? Because knowing and doing are separated by the widest chasm in human experience. You can know that you should exercise, eat well, save money, be patient, tell the truth, but knowing doesn't make you do it, does it? Trading is the same, only the consequences arrive faster and more definitively. The market is the greatest teacher you'll ever have, but it's a cruel one. It doesn't grade on a curve. It doesn't give partial credit. You're either right or you're wrong, and your account balance is the report card that gets updated in real time. There's no fooling it. You can't charm it or negotiate with it. You can't work harder to make up for poor decisions. The market reveals who you really are, not who you think you are or who you want to be. It's a mirror that shows no mercy. I remember my first major loss like it was yesterday. I thought I was so smart. I had analyzed everything, and the setup looked perfect. But I had violated one of my own rules. I had let my position size get too large because I was so confident. When the market turned against me, I froze. I couldn't believe it was happening. The loss mounted, and instead of cutting it immediately, I held on, hoping, praying it would turn around. By the time I finally admitted defeat and closed the position, I had lost 3 times what I should have. The market had just taught me that confidence without discipline is nothing more than arrogance in disguise. That lesson cost me dearly, but it was worth every penny because it taught me something no book ever could. The market doesn't reward analysis or intelligence or intuition in isolation. It rewards one thing above all else: discipline. The ability to follow your rules even when everything inside you is rebelling against them. Especially when everything inside you is rebelling against them, because that's precisely when following the rules matters most. Let me tell you what discipline really means in trading, because I think most people misunderstand it. They think it means being strict or rigid, following some mechanical system without thought. That's not discipline, that's abdication of responsibility. True discipline in trading means staying aligned with what you know to be true even when your emotions are lying to you. It means recognizing that your feelings about a position have nothing to do with whether that position will make money. The market doesn't care how you feel about your trade. It's going to do what it's going to do regardless. I learned to trade by watching the tape, by observing patterns, by developing a sense for when the market was telling me something important. But all that skill, all that pattern recognition, would have been worthless without the discipline to act on what I was seeing. And acting doesn't always mean jumping into a trade. Often it means doing nothing, sitting on your hands, watching and waiting while opportunities that aren't quite right drift by. That's harder than it sounds, isn't it? When you're sitting there watching the screen, your money idle and stocks are moving, the pressure to do something builds until it's almost unbearable. This is where most traders destroy themselves, not in bad trades, but in unnecessary trades. They confuse activity with productivity. They think that if they're not trading, they're not working, they're not making progress. But in the market, sometimes the most profitable thing you can do is nothing at all. Waiting for the right setup, the clear signal, the moment when everything aligns. That's not being lazy. That's being professional. That's understanding that your capital is precious and you're not going to risk it unless the odds are clearly in your favor. I've made millions by being patient, by sitting and waiting until I was absolutely certain the time was right. And I've lost millions by being impatient, by jumping into trades before the setup was complete because I was bored or anxious or just wanted to feel like I was doing something. The market taught me that patience isn't passive. It's one of the most active, difficult things you can do because you're fighting against your own nature. Human beings aren't wired to sit still when there's action happening around them. We want to participate. We want to be in the game. The market exploits this impulse ruthlessly. Here's something else they don't teach you in the books. Trading is largely about managing discomfort. When you're in a winning trade, letting it run is uncomfortable because you're watching your paper profits and wondering if you should lock them in before they evaporate. When you're in a losing trade, cutting it is uncomfortable because you're admitting you were wrong and crystallizing a real loss. When you're out of the market completely, that's uncomfortable too because you're wondering if you're missing opportunities. There's no comfortable place to be, which means you need to get comfortable with discomfort. You need to learn to sit with those feelings without letting them drive your decisions. The traders who succeed are the ones who develop the ability to separate their emotional state from their trading decisions. I'm not saying you become emotionless. That's impossible and probably not even desirable. I'm saying you acknowledge the emotions, feel them, and then set them aside while you make your decision based on what the market is actually telling you, not on what you hope it's telling you or fear it might be telling you. Let me give you an example from my own experience. I was long on a stock that had been climbing steadily. Everything looked good. Then one day, the character of the trading changed. The volume was different. The way it responded to buying was different. Everything in me wanted to ignore these signals because I was sitting on a nice profit and I didn't want it to end. But I had learned to listen to the market, so I sold. 2 days later, the stock collapsed. Did I feel good about selling? No. I was anxious the whole time, wondering if I was overreacting. But I followed what the market was showing me, rather than what I wanted to believe, and that discipline saved me from riding a winner all the way back down to a loser. This brings me to another critical point. The market is always right. I don't care what your analysis says. I don't care what the fundamentals suggest. I don't care what you think should happen. If the market is going down, it's going down for a reason, even if you don't know what that reason is. Your job isn't to argue with the market or to convince it that it's wrong. Your job is to align yourself with what it's actually doing, not what you think it should be doing. I've watched countless traders destroy themselves arguing with the market. This stock should be higher, they say. The value is obvious. The market just hasn't recognized it yet. Maybe that's true. Maybe the market will recognize it eventually. But in the meantime, the market is telling you it doesn't care about your valuation, and you're losing money every day you stay in that position. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. That's not just a saying, it's a mathematical certainty that has bankrupted more smart people than I can count. I want to talk about risk now, because this is where the simplicity of trading really reveals itself. Every trade you make is a risk. Every single one. There are no sure things. Even the trades that look perfect can turn against you because the market doesn't care about how good your setup looks. This means that risk management isn't something you do occasionally, it's something you do every single time. Before you enter any trade, you need to know exactly how much you're willing to lose if you're wrong. Not approximately, not roughly, exactly. And you need to be willing to take that loss the moment your stop is hit, without hesitation, without hoping it will come back, without telling yourself you'll give it just a little more room. This is simple, right? Determine your risk before you enter. Set your stop. Honor your stop. A child could understand this, but actually doing it requires you to overcome some of the most powerful forces in human psychology. The aversion to loss, the need to be right, the hope that springs eternal, the inability to admit mistakes. These aren't trading problems. These are human problems. This is why I keep coming back to the same point. Trading isn't hard because the markets are complex. Trading is hard because you are complex, and the market forces you to confront every complicated, contradictory, self-sabotaging part of yourself. Now I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. I've failed more times than I've succeeded. I've gone bankrupt. I've made massive mistakes. I've let emotions override discipline. I've held losers too long and sold winners too early. I've done every single thing I'm telling you not to do. Multiple times. The difference between me and the traders who washed out isn't that I was smarter or more talented. It's that I learned from my failures, internalized the lessons, and kept refining my approach until I developed a system that worked with my psychology rather than against it. You see, you can't trade against your own nature. If you're someone who needs to be right all the time, you'll never make it as a trader unless you learn to redefine what right means. In trading, being right isn't about winning on every trade. It's about having a system that wins more than it loses over time, about cutting your losses quickly and letting your winners run, about being right about the big picture even if you're wrong on the individual trades. This requires a fundamental shift in thinking that most people never make. I learned to think in probabilities rather than certainties. I learned that I didn't need to win on every trade to be profitable. I just needed to make sure my wins were bigger than my losses and that I had enough wins to come out ahead over time. This sounds simple, and mathematically it is, but psychologically it's incredibly difficult because every loss feels personal. Every time you're wrong, it stings. Your ego takes a hit, and if you're not careful, you start trading to prove you're smart rather than to make money, and that's when you're finished. The market doesn't care about your ego. It doesn't care about proving anything. It just is. It moves according to the collective actions of millions of participants, each with their own motivations, their own fears, their own hopes. Your job is to read what it's telling you and align yourself with it, not to impose your will on it, not to force it to do what you want, just to listen, watch, wait, and act when the timing is right. Let me share something with you that changed everything for me. I stopped trying to predict what the market would do and started focusing on what I would do, based on what the market was doing. That subtle shift from prediction to reaction, from certainty to flexibility, made all the difference. I didn't need to know where the market was going. I just needed to know what I would do when it gave me certain signals. If it broke support, I would sell. If it broke resistance with strong volume, I would buy. I removed the guesswork and the ego from the equation and just followed the signals. This is what trading mastery looks like. A set of rules so simple you could write them on a napkin, combined with the discipline to follow them, even when every instinct is screaming at you to do otherwise. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. Most of the time, it's boring. You're waiting, watching, doing nothing. Then suddenly the opportunity appears. You act decisively, and then you're back to waiting again. That's it. That's the whole process. But the waiting is where the magic happens. The waiting is where you prove to yourself that you can control your impulses, resist temptation, stay patient. The waiting is where you separate yourself from the gamblers and the amateurs who need constant action to feel alive. The waiting is where you demonstrate that you're in this for the long haul, that you understand trading is a marathon, not a sprint, and that preserving your capital matters more than hitting home runs. I want you to understand something. Every loss you take is tuition in the school of trading. Every mistake is a lesson if you're willing to learn from it. The market is constantly teaching you about yourself, about your weaknesses, your blind spots, your areas where discipline breaks down. The question is whether you're paying attention. Most traders keep making the same mistakes over and over because they're not actually learning from them. They're not sitting down after a loss and asking themselves, what did I do wrong? What rule did I break? How can I avoid this next time? I kept a journal of every significant trade I made. Not just the entry and exit, but what I was thinking, what I was feeling, why I made the decision. Looking back at those journals taught me more about trading than any book or mentor ever could because they showed me my patterns. They revealed that I was most likely to violate my rules when I was feeling anxious about money, or when I had a string of losses and was trying to make it all back in one trade, or when I was overconfident after a big win. Once I knew my patterns, I could guard against them. This is the work of trading that nobody talks about. It's not about charts and indicators and economic data. It's about self-knowledge. It's about building the psychological infrastructure to execute a simple plan consistently. It's about becoming the kind of person who can face loss without flinching, who can watch profits evaporate without panicking, who can sit on their hands when every fiber of their being wants to trade. You might be wondering at this point, if it's this hard, why do it? Why put yourself through this psychological gauntlet? For me, the answer is simple, because there's no other arena quite like the market. It's pure. It's honest. It tells you the truth about yourself in a way that almost nothing else in life does. And when you finally crack the code, when you develop the discipline to follow your rules, the patience to wait for your setups, the courage to take your losses and let your profits run, there's a freedom in it that's hard to describe. You're no longer fighting yourself. You're no longer at war with your own impulses. You've achieved a kind of mastery that transcends trading and bleeds into every other area of your life. Everything I've shared with you today, everything I've learned through decades of trial and error, through fortunes made and lost, through bankruptcies and comebacks, it's all compiled in my ebook, Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk. I encourage you to check it out. The link is in the description below. It goes deeper into the philosophy I've developed, the specific rules I follow, and the mindset shifts that transformed me from a reckless speculator into a disciplined trader. I also want to ask you to do something for me. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about your biggest trading challenge. Tell me what resonates with you from what I've shared. And if you found value in this video, explore the other content on this channel. Each video is designed to help you develop the mindset and discipline necessary to succeed in the markets. We're building a community of serious traders here, people who understand that trading isn't about getting rich quick, it's about developing mastery over yourself. Here's what I want you to remember as you close this video and return to your trading. The market will always be there. The opportunities will always come around again. There's no rush. There's no need to force anything. The setup you're looking for will present itself if you're patient enough to wait for it. And when it does, you'll know. Something inside you will click, and you'll act with confidence and clarity because you've done the work, you've followed your rules, and you trust your process. Trading is simple, but it's never easy. It's simple because the rules are straightforward. It's never easy because following those rules requires you to override your human nature, to act rationally when you're feeling emotional, to be disciplined when you want to be impulsive, to be patient when you want to act. But here's the beautiful truth. You can do this. You can develop these skills. You can become the trader you want to be. It won't happen overnight. It won't be comfortable. But if you commit to the process, if you learn from your mistakes, if you stay humble and keep growing, you will get there. The question isn't whether profitable trading is possible. It is. I'm living proof of that, as are countless others who have made fortunes in the markets. The question is whether you're willing to do what it takes to face yourself honestly, to follow your rules ruthlessly, to stay patient relentlessly, to learn continuously. The market is waiting. It doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't care if you're scared or confident or uncertain. It just is. And your success or failure depends entirely on whether you can align yourself with what it's showing you rather than what you want to see. So take what I've shared with you today. Think about it. Internalize it. Challenge yourself to look in the mirror and identify where you're breaking your own rules, where discipline is breaking down, where emotion is overriding logic, because that's where the real work begins. That's where transformation happens. Not in finding the perfect system or the secret indicator, but in becoming the kind of person who can execute a simple plan with unwavering consistency. The markets have given me everything and taken everything away, multiple times over. They've taught me who I am at my core. They've forced me to grow in ways I never would have otherwise. And now I'm passing these lessons on to you, hoping they'll save you some of the pain I went through, hoping they'll accelerate your journey to profitability. Check out the ebook, watch our other videos, engage with this community, and most importantly, get out there and trade with discipline, patience, and a clear understanding of risk. The simple truth is this: you already know what to do. You know you should cut losses. You know you should let winners run. You know you should be patient. You know you should manage risk. You know all of it. The hard part, the part that will determine whether you make it or wash out, is actually doing it. Day after day, trade after trade, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's where champions are made. That's where fortunes are built. Not in the knowing, but in the doing. Now go do it, and remember, I'll see you in the markets.